Hello beautiful people, welcome to Michi Designs. In today's tutorial we're going to learn how to make this beautiful Zara cap. Isn't it beautiful? Okay, let's get started. So now the materials needed for this tutorial is your Mako. This black thing here is called Mako. You can get it from people that sell things that they use in making caps, shops, maybe even shoemaking shops. You can get it from there. So we're using the Mako and then a satin fabric. So the measurements I'm using here, the satin fabric, I'm using a width of 16 inches wide and then a length of 25 inches. Please note that you need to get the head circumference of the person that you're making the cap for. So now I'm using my head circumference is 23 inches, but I'm going to use a Mako length of 20 inches and width of 2.5 inches. As you can see, in this 2.5 inches. So after getting my measurement, the measurement of your fabric has to be longer than that of the Mako. I'm using 25 inches length here, so you find out why this one has to be longer later on in this tutorial. So after getting my measurements done, I'm still trying to confirm my measurements here, right here. So after getting my measurements done, so the next thing I'm going to do is to fold the fabric into two along the length. Fold it into two to get the midpoint. So I'm going to notch that midpoint right now. I'll do the same thing for the Mako too. So I'm notching the midpoint of the fabric. Then I also fold the Mako. Remember, this Mako is 20 inches. The fabric is 25 inches long. So I'm notching the midpoint of the Mako. Then I'll place them. I'll place the midpoints on each other. Midpoint of the Mako to midpoint of the fabric. I'll place them on each other and then I'll fold the fabric along with the Mako, making sure I leave extra allowance that I'm going to use to stitch, like half an inch allowance. So I'm folding the fabric alongside with the Mako on the wrong side of the fabric, please, on the wrong side. Then I'll fold in, I'll make sure I leave extra allowance for sewing. Then I'll fold in half inch of this fabric to sew it very close to that Mako, making sure you don't sew the Mako. You cannot sew on this Mako, so you're going to sew on the fabric very close to the Mako. You don't leave, you can sew exactly on the place where the fabric ends, where you're folding in the 5 inch, so that the Mako doesn't shift by the time you finish sewing it. So I'm folding in that half an inch there. I'm going to fold this to the end of the fabric, even to the end of the place where the Mako didn't get to. So going to fold, the Mako is shorter than the fabric, so we're going to sew along that half an inch. I'm trying to fold it. You can hold it down with your pins so it can stay in a place. So you're going to sew along that half an inch that you just folded right now. So I'm going to sew there, and then I'll also sew where this Mako ended on both sides of the fabric. You know, it's not the same length. I've sewn it now. I also sewed where on this other side, on both sides of the fabric where the Mako ended. I sewed it along that side too. Then after sewing, I'll now fold my fabric into two. I'll now mark my head circumference. Like I said, my head circumference is 23 inches. So divided by 2 is 11.5 inches. So right now I'm placing them, I'm folding it into two now. Then I'll pin it down to secure it so it doesn't shift. I'm just taking my time to pin it well so they will be equal. So I'm pinning it round. I'm pinning it round because after securing the side, I'm also going to secure the upper part of this cap. After pinning it round, I'm going to mark my head circumference. 11.5. You know, it's 23 divided by 2, 11.5. So I'm going to mark it. So that is why you leave extra inches after the marco. So you can use your actual head circumference to sew it off. No, you can't sew on the marco, so you can cut out exactly 23 inches on your marco because you can't sew on it. So I'm going to sew it off from that 23 inches, and then after that I'm going to continue the sewing to the upper part of the cap. I'm going to continue. You know the way you sew your turban, that's the way I'm going to sew it. So now I'm done sewing it. I'm trimming off the excess fabric there, after which I'm going to gather it round. Some people do gather it direct without sewing, but I prefer sewing it first before gathering it to secure the stitches. You know, sometimes the gathering may be loose, the threads may loose and cut, but once you secure it first with your normal stitch, and then you can now gather it, your stitching is secured. So I'll gather it the same way we do for turbans. I'm gathering it now. I'm going to gather it till the end of that curve, this upper side that is circular. I'm not going to gather the band side where the head circumference is sewn. So I'll stop where this band stops. That's where my gathering will stop. So that's where I'm stopping, where that band stops, where the band ends. I'm securing the gather stitch now. So once you just secure it and you turn it open, you know we are working on the wrong side. Turn it to the right side and the cap is ready. This is the cap. So the next thing we're going to do now, we're going to do a rose. We're going to do a fabric rose to attach to the back of it. This is the cap. It's ready. So now for the rose that we're going to attach, I'm using half-inch foam. Half-inch foam. You can also get it from people that sell foams materials, even people that sell shoemaking materials. You can get it from them. So I'm using half-inch foam. I'm going to use the fabric. I'm going to use, the length is I'm using is 34 inches. 34 inches in length, and then the width is 8 inches. Then the foam is going to be shorter, just like the marco. So the foam is, I'm using 31 inches foam length, and then the width is 7 inches. So remember, the fabric is 8 inches width. So why we made the foam shorter is so it doesn't shoot out, because we're going to gather it round, so it doesn't show outside. The fabric has to be wider and longer to cover up the foam. So I'm pinning it down together before I start gathering it to form my rose. I'm pinning the foam together with the fabric. So after pinning it, I'll start gathering from the excess on top of that, and on the top side of that folding. I'll close it up. I'm not stitching this. I'll gather everything. So I'll gather from that excess fabric there, and then I'll gather it round. I'm just taking my time to gather it well, so my rose will form well. So as I'm gathering it, I'll be dragging it to form my rose. I'll be dragging the fabric together to form my rose. I'll be dragging it to form the rose. So I'm done gathering it. You can see the rose is already formed. So I'm securing the stitch now, making sure that there are no rough edges showing at the front. So I'm done gathering the rose. So I'll now attach it to the cap. I'll attach it to the cap at the back of the cap. I just stitch it nicely and make sure the stitching is firm so the rose doesn't fall off from the cap. So I'm done stitching it and our Zara cap is ready. See how beautiful it looks. So beautiful. Thank you for watching this video. Please do well to subscribe to my channel and please turn on your notification bell. See you in my next class. Bye.